In this video, we're going to see the functionality of purchase contracts in NetSuite. For that, we've logged into the inventory manager's role. Purchase contracts are used to define predetermined or pre-negotiated values for purchase of items from vendors. This could be based on quantities or amounts, so the purchase manager could negotiate with the vendor for a quantity-based discount or an amount-based discount in a purchase contract. We'll see that how to define that in NetSuite in this purchase contract screen. I'm going to use the navigation portlet to navigate into the different transactions that we're going to see today. So I've just opened the purchase contract in a new tab over here. So you can see there are some pre-listed purchase contracts that have been created in the system. From here I can create a new purchase contract by clicking on new transaction. And then this screen opens up for creating a new purchase contract. And over here I can fill in the required information to define my purchase contract. So let's say I give it a new name, purchase contract ID PC004. I have to define which vendor this contract applies to. So I'm going to select American Computers. The vendor number has been automatically populated by the system. The date here signifies the date on which the contract is being created. The effectivity can be defined as order date or expected receipt date. So depending on whether the purchase order is created on a particular date, it could be applicable, or it could be applicable based on when that purchase order is expected to be received in the system. There's a contract start date. So let's say I define it as 1st of January. And the system says the system cannot accept a date that is in the past. So let's just keep it at 3rd January. And the end date can be defined. So this is the period in which the purchase contract is effective, 3rd of January till 31st of March 2019. There is some additional information that can be filled, like location or employee who's entering this data, a minimum amount required for the purchase order in which the purchase contract can be applicable, or the maximum amount till which this contract will be applicable. I'm going to leave them blank for now, since that is not required for our example. There's also some information like department and class which can be selected for reporting purposes later on. And then we can define the item for which this purchase contract is applicable. I'm going to select this item, BlackBerry Playbook, which is purchased in eaches. The description of the item is here. And the base rate is 250. This is coming from the item master. And over here I can then add the additional pricing information for this contract. So as you can see, the contract can be applicable by line quantity, or by overall item quantity, or by overall contracted PO item quantity. So this means that if I select this option by line quantity, the discount will be applied for every line that is created in a purchase order for this item. If I create it by overall item quantity, the overall quantity of that item ordered in a particular purchase order will be taken into consideration while applying the purchase contract terms. Or if I select this option by overall contracted PO item quantity, it will take into account all the purchase orders that I have created during the purchase contract effectivity. So if I have created 3 purchase orders in the period between 1st of January and 31st of March, the total quantity of the purchase orders will be taken into account, and the contract terms will be applied to the total quantity. For now, I'm just going to leave it at by line quantity. And then I can define the additional pricing options. So the first line remains from 0 quantity, which means anything above 0 quantity that I order for this item, the base rate of 250 will be applicable. I'll say OK, and then add a new line. So if I order more than 125 units, the purchase contract or the purchase order will be created for, let's say, the price of 240, which means a 4% discount. If I order more than 250 items, let's say a price of 230 will be applicable. And if I order more than 500 units, let's say a price of 220 will be applicable. So what this is saying is that from quantity 0 up to 124, a price of 250 will be applicable per unit. From quantity 125 up to 249, a price of 240 will be applicable for those 125 units. And from quantity 251 up until 499, a price of 230 will be applicable for those 250 units. And any units more than 500 that I have ordered in a purchase order, a price of 220 will be applicable. So the terms defined are from 0 to 124 items, a quantity of 250, an amount of 250 will be applicable per unit. From units 125 up to unit 249, a price of 240 will be applicable per unit. From unit 250 to 499, a price of 230 will be applicable per unit. And anything above 500 units that I ordered in a purchase order line, the price of 220 will be applicable per unit. You can also see the percentage discount here for easy reference. This can be saved by clicking on OK here. There is also an option to define an amount based discount over and above the quantity based discount that we have defined over here, and that can be done using the Terms tab. In the Terms tab, you can also define the payment terms like net 16, net 30, so on and so forth, Incoterms that are applicable for this purchase contract, and the discount on amount that can be defined here. So from amount 0, obviously a discount of 0% will be applicable. But let's say if I order a purchase order in which the amount exceeds 150,000, maybe we have contracted the vendor to give us a discount of an additional 2%, and I can add this line. So what will happen is all the discounts that are applicable as part of this pricing will be applied, and if my line, purchase order line, exceeds the amount of 150,000, an additional 2% will be given as discount by the vendor. And then we can save this purchase contract. Our purchase contract is now saved as PC004, and this can now be applied to any purchase order that we create for this vendor here on. To do that, I'll go back to my dashboard. Over here I can go into the purchase order. I'll open it in a new tab. Here I can see the purchase order creation screen. Some values are mandatory here, so the vendor name is mandatory. My vendor's name was American Computers. I'm going to put in the location, which is a mandatory field here. Let's say US East DC. Then I can fill in the purchase contract ID. The contract that we just created was PC004. I'm going to select that, and then I'll enter the item for which I'm creating a purchase. I'll go into the items tab under items. I'll order the same item, BlackBerry Playbook. Here the quantity is 1, that's why a cost of 250 is applicable to this purchase line. So let's say if I take 126, the cost of 240 is applicable for the total. Anything above 250, a different cost will be applicable. Anything above 500, a different cost will be applicable. This purchase order line can now be added, and I can save it. And it has been successfully saved. So that's how a purchase contract is defined in NetSuite, and based on those terms a new purchase order can be created and applied. Thanks for watching.